passionate about Cleveland sports.
He's going in, touchdown!
Browns, Indians, Cavs, the Big Ten, and more.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again!
Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond.
Swinging it line to deep right!
Here are your hosts, Andy Billman and Jarid Watson.
Hello and welcome, Andy and Jarid, Cleveland and beyond. I'm Jarid Watson. He's Andy Billman. Happy Easter. At time of recording, we are recording on Easter Sunday. To those of you who celebrate, happy Easter. To those of you who don't, I hope you had a great Sunday. I guess I'll go with that. On this episode, we'll talk about the Browns' schedule that was released for primetime games. And John Dorsey says no rumors about Duke Johnson being traded. Says no, rather, to those rumors. That's not happening, which makes probably Andy and I both feel better. The Tribe, welcome back Frankie Lindor on Saturday night, and Jason Kipnis earlier in the week as the Indians went 4-1 during the week, almost 5-0 if it wasn't for blowing the lead on Saturday in that doubleheader in the late game. That was painful. That was the end. That was the end of my Saturday night, was watching that game, and I could have gone without it. Andy probably would agree.
Painful.
It was awful.
Painful.
And there's some reports here that the Cavs are looking at Rick Pitino as a possible head coach. I don't know how I feel about this. We'll save those thoughts for later. Right now, let's start with the Cleveland Indians.
Cleveland Indians.
All right, so the Indians are wrapping up right now their homestand with the Atlanta Braves, this series with the Braves. They looked great in that early game on Saturday, and then it just fell apart last night. And right now, Andy, what are they down? 8-0 here on this Sunday night game?
Eight spot. It's weird because they had such a good start to the week.
Yes.
To win 3 in Seattle after getting swept in Kansas City. Such a good start to the week, and they came out great in game 1 and really throughout game 2 until the 9th. And sadly, which tends to happen in regular season baseball,
right? That
bad loss has carried into tonight. Josh Donaldson, boy, there's always been a theme with ex-Indians coming back to Cleveland and hitting the crap out of the ball. And Donaldson's picking up that Brandon Phillips stick and just, man, smacking the ball around. He's really had a good night. And
yeah.
I guess let's start off with, last night. And then getting into tonight, and then the week, because the week is still going to end on 4-2 unless the Indians have an amazing comeback. Last night kind of proved what we've all been kind of mentioning here on different radio spots, and now it's 9-0 as I see another single, Donaldson scoring. The big thing with the Indians that I've noticed that you and I have talked about that we've all been wondering is, pitching is going to lead this team.
Right.
But what's going to happen when pitching falters? And last night was a good example. It wasn't Brad Hand and Whittegren, which we're going to get to in a second. But it was the other guys, the Olsons, Simber, a lot of Ramirez, a lot of Cody Anderson. And, they just had one of those nights. And I will be fair, so far from all the teams that the Indians have played, by far the Braves are the best lineup. The Braves.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle had a hot offense coming into this.
Yeah, but the Braves are better.
Right.
The Braves can really. It's the difference between being hot and like watching a team like the Braves. They can smoke the ball.
Well, they're an example of a team that doesn't have the greatest pitching all the time either.
That's right.
I mean, Braves fans are kind of angry that they don't have that they haven't picked up a little more for their bullpen, I believe, as well. So
yeah, bullpen's shaky, and that's where So last night they blow a lead, and where I want to start is not blowing the lead, because if you want to go through the bullpen arms, Nick Whittegren and Brad Hand are solid. You have a good 8th and 9th. You really do.
Yeah.
And Nick has proven he can go 2 innings. So you have a good back in the bullpen. And again, the Indians have length. So you really do have the game set up to your favor. And you hope to figure out 1 or 2 more guys. And Simmer's been okay. And the rest of it's really been just, I mean, Tyler Olson, we were just alluding to it before we came on. I think Tyler Olson's days are numbered. We've tried to give him a lot of chances here to make it. He just hasn't come through. Neil Ramirez, which I had high hopes for at the end of last year, even though he struggled in September, he really hasn't found it. Oliver Perez, who was very good and solid last year, boy, you could not talk a parallel opposite. He has struggled. He really hasn't looked confident. Reminds me of the Oliver Perez I saw in New York with the Mets. It just does not seem to have a rhythm or a flow yet. And then Cody Anderson's just coming off Tommy John, so I don't know how tough you can be on him. And again, Dan Ontario's a nice guy, but Dan Ontario's not good. So that's really your bullpen. So all that to be said.
We did. I know as much as we focused on the starting those 8 players in the field and those bats, we knew coming into this that the bullpen might be a little shaky. We knew that there were possible issues that could come up. We also know that there's young arms out there that are still going to get their chance too. So
that's my point.
I think I'm not sweating it.
Again, if you have the 8th, 7th, 8th, and 9th figured out, which I think the Indians do, you're okay. Those other things can fill in.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it's okay. But last night, because of the doubleheader, Hand and Nick pitched the inning before, so you need a guy to come in and really do well. They tried Neil Ramirez. He really struggled. He was lucky he didn't give up runs. Simber came in. Boy, Simber had a really bad night. Just didn't have it. Olsen came in. Olsen fished one batter, walked, and said exit stage right. And then the next guy in was Cody Anderson. I thought that was a very tough spot. That's the only guy I'm going to be easy on. Cody's just coming off arm surgery. Anyways, getting to my point. So it's 8-7. So here's a chance for the Indians, though, to maybe get a rally going and get the lead back. And I thought the bottom of the 9th is what was more alarming, because those at-bats by Jake Bauers, by Roberto Perez, and by Tyler Naquin, it was actually Bauers, Naquin, Perez. They were all bad.
Brutal.
Bad swings.
Yes.
No confidence. And that's what bothers me about that loss. The bullpen, it's a doubleheader. We all know if Hand and Nick are in there, they'll figure it out. I have confidence in both those guys. But when you're in those days where you don't have those guys available and your bullpen does happen to falter, the Indians had a chance to come back and make some noise. And boy, Jared, they didn't even get a hit. They struck out. And all 3 swings were terrible. And that's what bothers me about the Tribe is this lineup is still frail. And they kind of alluded to it here in the ESPN broadcast. It's just frail. There's a lot of frailties in this lineup still. I'm
really not a big fan of it. Well, I'm bummed. I'm bummed that Bauers isn't delivering. That's a big letdown.
I am too.
I do. The lineup does look better. Seeing Carlos Gonzalez in there, seeing, Jason Kipnis having a chance, although Jason, even tonight, bases loaded in the first inning, popped out to end the first. I mean, this is what, and I remember this was more 2014 Cleveland Indians, I believe, 2014, where you would have these games where they score runs out of nowhere, and you're like, wait a minute, they can score runs. I didn't realize they could score runs. They can score runs. It's great. And then you turn around and then they have a night like this where there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Bases loaded, nothing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Kipnis pop flying out is a bothersome thing. Again, to your point, he just came back, and the lineup's definitely feeling better.
It is,
but there's no rhythm on this team, and there are some real weaknesses, and it showed in the bottom of the 9th. I mean, those 3 at bats were very poor, and I was going to go through it. So let's start with Bauers. I do think Jake needs time. But I also am just seeing things that are eye-opening, worrisome. And again, Memorial Day is I think you need to get us to Memorial Day. I'm even telling myself that. But Jake Bauers just doesn't look good.
Well,
and he's had a couple good at-bats. He's had a couple moments here and there. But Jared, over the long haul, I'm just not seeing it. And I'm going to wait patiently and give it this until May. But boy, after late May, if I'm seeing this, I don't know.
The Indians are going to say the same thing, and we know that, right? We know that. We're coming up on the end of April, and the Indians have a winning record. And do they still have that 1-game lead on the Twins right now? I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Whatever. Doesn't matter. But the bottom line is it wasn't as painful in April as it could have been. It also was very much exactly what we expected when we look at the weak spots of this team.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah.
Again, it's frail, but they have such strong pitching that they can probably win these games to make the playoffs. I think they will. I really still believe that.
Yeah.
But that's how frail it is. Meaning, like games like tonight, 9-0. Look, most teams down 9-0 are going to win in baseball. But for the Indians, it's more like, can we get through this game? I mean, that's what you kind of feel like, because you just know the Indians don't have the bats to do it. The other thing, too, last night that I know Rick Manning pointed out, and I felt the same thing with Jake Bowers. They had a situation with Kipnis on third, and Jake Bowers was bunting with no outs on a squeeze bunt. I mean, is that what we're going for here? Like, boy, I just feel like this team is really trying to get really pushing and squeezing out every bit of juice here to make orange juice. And again, the catcher thing is going to be a bigger topic as we go along too. Perez is at 150. Pilecki,
he had a hit tonight.
He did get a hit tonight. And Pilecki, again, he's around 200. Well, again, in these spots, and Perez was one of the guys last night, they're in big spots, it's going to be a problem.
No, in big spots, there's only one guy you want at the plate. Only one guy.
Frankie. That's it.
No, I was going to say Carlos Santana.
Yeah, Frankie or Carlos. Yeah. Okay, let's get to the positive. Santana is having one of those years. And thank God he is.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say on this team that's a positive before this losing streak, and they did it in game 1 on Saturday, the 2-out run scoring from this team is remarkable. And if they keep that up through the year, they actually might get closer to the mid-90s in wins, because their 2-out hitting, it was great in Seattle. It was even better in that first game at Progressive. Great hitting with 2 outs. They scored all those runs. That 6-run burst was all done with 2 outs, and they're leading the league in that category right now. So
hey, 2 outs led to the bases loaded this first inning of this game, and
well, they didn't come through. I know
Kipnis really let me down on that one. So
yeah, well, exactly. And by the way, the other thing too with the Indians, to Jared's point about April, it hasn't been your normal April. It's been busy. Carlos Gonzalez, as he alluded to, is now here. Jason Kipnis came in Seattle. I did want to get to this. This Brad Miller, Hanley Ramirez. Hanley, quick thing on Hanley. He did win one game. He won that Twins game.
Yep.
So he had his moment here in the team, and he kind of left. It just didn't seem to be working. And I'll be honest,
it was a quiet exit too, wasn't it?
It was
Very
quiet. And I'll be honest with you, like, I was excited about Hanley after that first 2 series. Then I saw the other series, and now I was like, well, this is the reason why he was on the fringe and not making the team. He just didn't have it. Brad Miller. Now, I was surprised about this. And I know we both were. And I know Brad Miller is higher on age than Steinmetz and Moroff. And I understand that Brad's just a second baseman. So his utility skills are lower. Frankly, though, I thought Brad Miller should have stayed because I thought he could hit. I thought he's one of the few guys who look comfortable at the plate and get hits in big spots and nothing. And by the way, Moroff's had a nice series over the weekend. He's played well. But still, with that said, Jared, I would have preferred to keep Miller and either send Steinmetz or Moroff down to Columbus.
Let's talk about this too. What does that say to the fact that he made the comments that he made as he left? Because that surprises me in regard to this Indians organization as an organization. I mean, we expect Trevor Bauer to kind of pipe off every once in a while regarding we've had that, especially during the arbitration issues that happened. But in regard to these coaches, this coaching staff, this team, Tito, everyone else, I guess I'm just kind of surprised. I guess I'm kind of surprised that he came off as sharply as he did as he exited.
I think this with Brad, and that's why I don't think it was right what he did, but I understand his frustration. Because I think he was looking at Moroff and Steinmetz and saying, are you really saying I'm not as good as these two guys? When I was playing every day and these guys were kind of being shuffled throughout, and I think he's right. And I think that was a mistake. And again, I get it. It isn't like that move did not make sense. They're basically saying we're going with youth and we're going with more flexibility.
Right.
Okay,
I mean, and that's the thing. And Brad, and he limited them. Them on where.
That's right.
On the options of where he could go in the field with this team. I mean, he's not going to stay at second base over Kipnis.
Oh, that's the point. And again,
so why was he so mad in the point that he took it out on the team in a sense?
Here's the thing. If I'm being truthful and he gave me a truth pill, Kipnis has to play second. We're all good there. I wouldn't mind seeing Brad Miller DH a little bit right now. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Just because right now, this option of Jake Bowers DHing every day, oh my gosh, it's going to cause some trouble down the road.
Yeah, but I mean, Andy, even so, just think about how that sounds. Who's DHing tonight? Brad Miller.
Oh, I know.
That's another
grasping at straws.
Oh, yep, that's this Indians lineup.
And in fairness to what Jared, and in fairness to what you just said, Jared, I will step off my soapbox because he's right. Look, Brad Miller's okay at best, so it shouldn't be that big of a move, but that is how razor thin I think this lineup is.
Yeah.
Or even moves like that, I do think make a cause. I think it has a cause and effect.
I think they recognize they're going to have to make moves quickly when they make them. That they're going to be decisive on everything they do because they can't slip. That room for error that we talk about, there's not much. It's marginal,
Not much.
if any. They have to be decisive in these decisions, and they are. Boom. Not going to work, Brad. Got to go.
Right. No, agreed. I would love to see Oscar Mercado come up. I think he's good. I've heard good things about him.
He probably is, right?
I would like to. The other thing, too, I don't want to get too far down the road. Naquin slumped off again. His average is back down to about 230, 240.
Yeah.
Martin is up to 257. Martin probably is an outfielder every day, but, he has had a weird glove. He has had several balls get by him, or he's had several balls now, not just get by him, but he's had a couple times now where a ball doesn't go in his glove on, singles where the ball kind of pops out. It's one thing to happen once or twice. I've seen it now 3 or 4 times now with Martin, where I don't think he takes the best routes to the ball, and I see him just misplaying balls. I see Martin as being a right fielder or left fielder. I'm not seeing Martin as a center fielder.
I never saw him as a center fielder, to be completely honest.
I know, but I just think it needs to be brought up because this team does have good pitching, and Zimmer is a great center fielder with his glove. And the thing that I just noticed with Martin is, and again, it's razor thin, so I'm bringing it up. Like Martin's center fielding ability, I think has been okay. I haven't been blown away, and at times he's been a little bit of a liability, Jared. Because again, he's had a couple balls get by him, a couple balls that get hit to him. It doesn't get cleanly into his glove. And again, a couple times with routing of the ball hasn't been the smoothest. And of course, I say something about Roberto Perez, and he has 2 hits tonight in the game. But going back, I think that's something else to go to. I'll hit on 2 more positives though. This Whitgren, who's a Boilermaker, of course, and Brad Hand, I love the back end of the pen now. I actually think Simber's going to be okay. So I know what Jared's saying. The depth of the bullpen's not there, but you do have 2.5 solid guys. I really, really do. I mean, Jared, I don't know how you feel. In a big spot, Brad Hand and Whitgren, give him the ball. Simber, on some days, yes. Other days, no. But some days, yes. And I do like that with the length of the starting pitching. I think that's going to get you some wins.
We already know it. If you got a pitcher taking you, if our starting pitching takes you into the late 6th, right? Late 6th, early 7th inning. Really, you want that 7th inning. With these guys, I think you really want that 7th inning.
Yep.
You can see it. I'm confident anytime I see that pitching going out, if we get a run, we're good.
Yep.
But man, I mean, that's what we've got to focus on, I think, at this point. I think that nights like tonight where you see Bieber struggle like he did, you automatically know you're throwing in the towel, right? I mean, that's how I felt.
Well, that's how it feels.
Through the third. I mean,
and that's what I mean. It's like these games happen in baseball, but Jared, I know what you're saying. It's like, how are the Indians going to get through this game? They're lucky they have a day off tomorrow.
Well, Andy. That was why before we went on, I even mentioned I know that that Bieber's struggling, but what? Why pull him? Why pull him so early?
I mean, when he gets 8 runs, it's hard. It's hard in baseball.
I know
what you mean.
I know. I just think it really does. The damage is already done, and I guess maybe throwing Olsen out there afterwards is your way of trying to say, yeah, we get it. We're not. I mean, it's
I'll be honest with you. If you want to talk about it, there are 2 guys on this team. I think Oliver Perez will get as much chances as he needs because he's a veteran. But Olsen and Ramirez, there's some key weeks coming up, especially Tyler Olsen. Tyler's been on this team now for a while, and I've been waiting for him to make that jump, and Jared, he has not made that jump. He had a big opportunity last night, and he could not get it out. Couldn't even had 1 batter, 1 walk.
It was
and I don't blame Francona. I think he had to pull him. After that walk.
Well, because Francona still looked at it like we don't want this to get away any further, and we've got a chance. We've got 3 outs left.
Yep, and he did the right thing. And Yeah, I don't know. That the depth of the bullpen is where it's going to really come into question. So hopefully no injuries, because I think that boy, knock on wood, that could be troublesome. The other positive thing is Lindor. There's a nice article written that he did himself on the Players Tribune. Very heartfelt, and you can tell how much he missed the game. And to Jared's point, and it should be alluded to and heightened, with Lindor in the lineup, it kind of settles things down a little bit in the front half. Now, the back half is still a problem, but at least your front five is pretty strong. I like your front 5 or 6. 7, 8, 9, I think is going to be very much a merry-go-round for a little bit. But, at least your front 5, 6, at least you know what you got ahead of you, and you feel pretty good about it. So that is a big thing. And
yep.
I can't tell you how much, as a fan, I get excited about how well Carlos Santana's playing. I just think it's great. And he is having such a strong start. You just wonder if Ramirez and he's okay. That was the other thing I was going to get to.
Well, I knew we would get to that. Yeah.
So Jose's playing better, but it's really slow. It's not like leaps and bounds better. But if I'm being fair, do I think he's hitting better than he did last week? Yes. Is it big strides? No. I'm seeing little things that are getting better, but nothing.
Well,
substantial.
he took a wake up hot shot down that third baseline tonight already too. He took off the chest, so
yeah.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous about his where he's at mentally. Let's put it that way.
I'm hoping Lindor being there will help out.
That is exactly my thought. That Lindor can help pick him up.
I hope so,
because I think Jose really needs that reminder that, hey, you'll be all right. You'll get through this, whatever it is. He hasn't been the same. He just hasn't been the same. And he wears it on his sleeve. This is a guy who, let's just look at social media wise. Maybe this is my observation. Maybe it's not the same as everyone else's, but when I'm looking at this guy, you can tell when he's doing well because his Twitter account is full of fun posts.
Yeah.
And when's the last time he's had some really fun posts? I can't remember. Not that social media is the end all be all, but that definitely is a telling sign for a guy like that with a personality like that.
And I will actually put this into full effect. February 7th.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, and that guy does tweet a lot, so that's interesting.
When things were good for him, that he was, yeah. I don't get it.
All right, so
that's how you can tell it's mental.
No, I agree. That's I tip of the cap. That's a good point. I got 3 things, and then we'll go to the Browns. We kind of alluded to it, so I'll stay with this point.
Mm-hmm.
I am good with Hand and Whitgren. I think those 2 guys will lead this team.
Yeah.
Are you good with that?
I think I have to be. I absolutely have to be. I will say that I expect more out of Simber.
I think he's a half. And what I mean by that is I think he reminds me of Shaw. Now, Shaw's had more length, so it's not the same pitcher. But what I mean is, some nights Shaw, good Shaw. Some nights, not good. I think that's Simber. I think it's 50-50. Can the Tribe keep winning with very little power and timely hitting with 2 outs? And and let me just emphasize the little power. They are now 29th in baseball in home runs.
I don't think that that's sustainable, but I also don't think that that's necessarily how they're going to stay sustained with the changes in this lineup. I think you're going to get a little more offense. You're going to get a little more pop in the bat early on in that lineup. I think that will evolve, and we'll have a better idea once we get closer to the break.
If they keep 2 out hitting like that, the Indians are going to be more than fine.
If they can hit with 2 outs, absolutely they'll be fine.
They'll be more than fine. Biggest positive, biggest concern with the team, and I'll lead this one off.
Yep.
Biggest positive is the pitching, 1 through 9. You really do have your 8th and 9th, and you got your starters, which we've talked about a lot in this podcast, whether it's Bieber. I know Bieber's stunk tonight, but Bieber's been good. Bauer has been great. Clevenger, before he got hurt, has been solid. Cookie had a great start in his last one.
Yeah, he had a nice comeback start.
Kluber is kind of figuring things out, but I'm not as concerned about Kluber as others are. So I think that whole thing from the pitching staff is great. I just think the only thing with this team is the weakness in half of your outfield and your DH. You just do not have guys that are swinging a stick, especially in DH where in this league, in the American League, you need guys who can hit. And you don't have that right now. You just don't.
I will say I'll narrow mine down a little bit more. I get excited to watch Indians pitching, starting pitching. There was a time in the first couple weeks of this season where I thought one of these guys was going to get a no-hitter. It was going to happen. I mean, that's how good this starting pitching really can look at times. I get excited to watch this starting pitching. It makes these games bearable when this team is not hitting. I'm surprised at how much I can watch a low offensively scoring team and enjoy it as much as I do, and it's all because of this pitching. Pitching in those starting five are absolutely my favorite part of this team right now. My biggest concern, So my biggest concern goes deeper into why they're not hitting, and that has to do with identity. They are not cohesive. They are struggling to figure out, I guess, who they are. I don't know if this still comes down to what I've talked about prior, which has had to do with leadership in that dugout, and I don't know who that leader is going to be. You can almost say that Carlos Santana should be that guy at this point because of the way he's playing and knowing full well that he does not like to lose. This is a guy who just became an American citizen. He's got to have that. He's got a few years on these other guys. I think Carlos, at some point, by the middle of this season, could grab this team by the neck and take charge. I don't know. I see that happening before Lindor.
Well, I'll say this. I think it's a good thing that Lindor's back. I think it's a good thing that Kipnis is back. Kipnis is not Kipnis from 2 or 3 years ago, but Kipnis is not playing as bad as he was last year.
Right.
So I think Kipnis being back helps a lot. To what Jared's saying, I think this team does need a little bit of straightening out. And I do think the bigger thing here that you're noticing is Carlos Gonzalez, he's an everyday pro outfielder. So that's good to see. But he's not the leader of this team.
No.
And, you look at the other guys, it's not Martin, it's not Naquin. No. Jose Ramirez, it's not going to be him. But Lindor being back, you just hope that kind of breathes some energy on this club and kind of gives it some fresh air. And, there are, again, we talked about this back in October, and I'm going to say it. I think it's so key how Bradley Zimmer comes back and plays. Because I'm telling you, and watching the center field position and seeing some other things, they're going to need Zimmer to play.
Well, think about this. You bring in Zimmer. You slide Martin to left. You leave Naquin in right. Let's say Naquin gets some
Gonzalez.
rhythm.
You put
you're right.
Gonzalez
Never
DH.
mind. Never mind. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're going to pull Naquin off the field. Or are you leaving Naquin in over Martin? I think that's where you get the debate.
And then finally you get some challenges at DH, which is what I want. You're finally pushing the DH spot. You need to start pushing that on this team. The DH spot has not been pushed yet. I mean, this is just Jake Bauers is yours because you know what? We don't have any other options. You're kind of it. And by the way, too, and I like this kid, boy, Greg Allen. I hope he starts hitting soon. Because he's getting
he got his first hit yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, I like that kid. He's a good guy. I love to see him start hitting more. The Indians the Marlins coming to town, and then 4 against Houston in Houston. So the Michael Brantley reunion, it comes to full circle over the weekend. So
Michael's probably going to hit at least 3 home runs in that series.
Well, I'm sure Donaldson will give him the torch. But for all that to be said, I was going to come in this more positive until tonight's efforts. The Indians, though, and I mentioned this last podcast, they're right where they should be to win. Even in this week, if they go 4-2 at Seattle, and the Braves are a good young team, hey, not bad. You take it. You're moving forward. You're not losing these games to the Orioles, and you're not losing these games to teams that are lower echelon.
Hey, and to point that out, the Orioles right now have a better record than the Boston Red Sox. Think about that. Marinate on that for a minute.
I know.
Cleveland Browns.
Well, speaking of high expectations, the schedule release is out. So let's now go to the excitement of the Cleveland Browns. I have never...
It's been nonstop excitement.
I love
Andy, we were
Browns.
sharing fake schedules. We were looking at every possibility. How many of these games are going to be prime time? It was almost like everything that has anything to do with the Browns is now exciting. I don't know.
Really is. It goes in a stratosphere. So the schedule did come out. They do start off with the Titans. Everybody knows the schedule by now. The big dates are the Sunday night game against the Jets, which has some historical reference because the first game was played in Cleveland Stadium against the Jets. Rams on Sunday night. The Niners on Monday night in San Francisco. And then the Pats is another big game. I know it's not a Sunday night or Monday night game.
Yeah, were you surprised by some of these? And did they ended up picking, like the Niners game?
Not really, because they need to get the Niners in on prime time because of Jimmy G. And that's a good game to put that spot in there if you're going to get some profile to the Niners. Because basically they're saying they think the Niners are going to be back even though they had a tough year. And by the way, the Niners should be. You're going to get Bosa probably. You're going to have Jimmy.
The powers that be haven't really been that good at picking the teams that were going to have a good season and be back in regard to these primetime games. They've had some clunkers over the past 3 years.
It's true. And I'll tell you the big one for us will be out of all these games, I know the Rams is sexy and the Jets is sexy. Let's be honest, the big one for us is the Steelers game on the 14th. That game has got a lot of juice to it. That is the first time we'll be playing the Steelers that year, Jared. And that's the only one. I'm like, obviously you want to win all the games, but man, I really want that home game against the Steelers. I want them to be pit badly in that game.
Strange middle of the season to have both of those games falling within, 3 weeks of each other, right?
It is. The only thing that's good about that is the Browns play a 3-game home stretch sandwich between the Bills and Dolphins. So that's a nice sandwich if you ever had one.
I think it's almost a storyline here, Andy, the way that they've got that scheduled with the Steelers in the middle is where you've got that apex in the middle of the season, that big story arc. Can the Browns beat the Steelers, their division rivals, and you're putting them both so close together in the schedule, in the middle of the schedule. And then you kind of glide out in a nicer, more relaxing style than we have in the past years, ending with the Bengals.
Cardinals.
I really just don't think the Ravens are going to be what people think, they're expecting on the positive end. I just don't.
I'm with you on that. In fact, that was something I was going to allude to. If you really, we can go through and do each game if you want, but I think the big
schedule game.
The schedule game. So it's never
we'll
too
leave that
early.
To Ken and Anthony.
Yeah, exactly. It's never too early. Oh, we can do it on here. We can handle. But if the Browns get before the Bengals game at home 7-5 with the stretch of games they have, that gets them to 11. So your hope is you really want to get to 8-4, 7-5. But by the time you head out of Heinz Field, because if you're in that mark, you're pretty much in shape. Because you hate to say it, but you're kind of cashing your chips. Bengals twice at Arizona, and then a home game against the against the Ravens. Sorry.
Well, Andy, there have been some folks in Cleveland media that have said, "Are we just as fans? Are we just afraid to be winners? I mean, is that why we're being so careful in regard to saying how many wins we expect on this schedule this year?" Because I got to tell you, my schedule game that I put together after the schedule came out, I was looking at 3 losses, and that's on and I really thought hard about it. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go through them then. I think the first game is tricky. The only reason why I say that is the Titans aren't sexy, but the Titans are a good team. And if you don't take them seriously, they can beat you.
See, I thought that more with the Jets game. And I actually picked the Jets game to be a loss.
Wow. See, I think they'll beat the Titans. I think they'll figure something out.
Yeah.
The Jets, I know where Jared's going with that. I think they'll beat the Jets. I think the Rams
feels like a
loss.
setup.
It does. I think the Rams is a loss. I think that's a tough game.
I actually picked the Rams as a win.
Wow.
And then I picked the Ratbirds as an absolute win in that 4th game of the season.
No, I do too. I think that too. The trip to San Francisco.
I picked that as a loss. You're going out west playing.
It's tough.
Yep.
And
I picked the Seattle game to be a win because I know that Russell Wilson had his creepy ass video in bed with his wife after. It was so creepy. What
the
was
Seahawks
that? He's
are
such
a weird team.
He's a strange dude. But after all that, but I mean, that's the thing. I don't see the Seahawks as no. It's not the Seahawks of old. It's just not.
I think the Patriots is a winnable game because of the week off, and I really do think the Patriots are landing much softer than what people think. I picked that game
as a win.
Yep, I think they'll win in Denver.
Broncos, Bills, Pennsylvania, all wins. Dolphins a win.
Pennsyltucky
on the second game
Again,
a win. The Bungles a win.
I cannot emphasize this enough as how important that home game is with the Steelers. I think that's going to be it doesn't matter if you ask me now, if you ask me in October, you ask me in September. I think that game is going to come right down to the end. That first game at home with the Steelers. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think they'll win, but I think that's the true test for this club. I really do. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think the Steelers. But
I think that you get a good build-up I think you get a good build-up to that game when you're talking about prime time with the Jets. You're talking about the Rams. You're talking about the Ravens. You're talking about the Niners, prime time, Seattle, and then the Patriots. Like, boy, oh boy, that's a build-up to get you ready for those two Pittsburgh games, right?
That's what I was going to allude to, too. This schedule does really play nicely into the fact that you're getting yourself ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'm with Jarid.
Oh, yeah, because that's the thing. Your last game of the season, you're at Cincinnati. You know what that is? Everyone's resting. I picked that as a loss because you're resting. You're chilling. That's it.
Jared
I'm telling
Watson
you.
On cloud nine. I do think they'll lose it. I love this Jared Watson. Boy, it's amazing what happens. He needs to ping pong off the tribe tonight. But I do see this at 12-4, 11-5. You got to see how the draft plays out. I'm with Jared. I think it's double-digit
Call me crazy.
Wins. I do too. I think the schedule really broke out nicely for the Browns. There really isn't too many hiccups. I think the only one are those games early. Because Tennessee is a tricky home game start off the year if you don't take them seriously, but I think this team will. I think in New York is tricky, and then you come home to play the Rams. It's not inconceivable you go 1-2, 0-3 if you don't pay attention. But I think this team will. I think they'll go 2-1, maybe even 3. Boy, if they ever go, I'll say that if they ever go 3-0 from those first 3 games, holy cow, unbuckle and get ready, because you have faced every test you can early on. Where if you don't take Titans seriously, they can beat you.
Yep.
A really tough road game early in the year in New York.
Yep.
Rowdy crowd.
Yeah.
They're going to be 1-0 as they play the Bills to start the year, and then you come home to play the defending NFC champions. I mean, if you go 3-0 in those first 3 games,
boy, how about this?
Wow.
You come off a week 4 beating your division rival, beating one of those division rivals in the Ravens. And I might take back my loss call for that 49ers Monday Night Football game.
Roll, baby, roll.
I'm telling you. Oh, geez. Yeah. But that's the thing. What are we talking about here? Why should we be afraid? Why should we be tentative? Why should we hold back? Why? This isn't the team of the past. This isn't that prior Browns squad. This isn't all the losers that we look in the rearview mirror and see. Bye.
Yep.
You gone. You're all gone. I'm looking forward. I'm looking Baker.
Yeah.
I'm looking Odell Beckham Jr. I'm looking Jarvis Landry. I'm looking, oh my gosh,
Kareem
what
Hunt
are we doing?
Kareem Hunt after the Patriots game.
What are we doing? I'm looking Nick Chubb. I'm looking Duke Johnson,
Callaway,
who's not going anywhere.
No, let's get to him.
Callaway, who's going to have a breakout season. And Njoku, it's gonna, like.
Do you really think Njoku's going to have a good year?
I think he's going to be all right. I do. I really do.
Okay, ready for this? Are we ready to line up our big field goal with Greg Joseph in a big spot?
I still don't understand what's going on with this right now. I don't get it. I don't know. Because let's be real about this. This is the stuff that could even if you get to the end, you could lose playoff games and Super Bowls if you don't have a guy you can trust kicking.
Yep. So the schedule works out nicely.
The Bills.
Ask the Bills. Ask many other teams. Ask Green Bay a couple years ago when Crosby got the Ips. Ask the Vikings when they couldn't make a field goal from Blair. Who, oh my gosh, just a field goal kicker can really be the death of you in a big spot, and it isn't just recently; it's throughout time.
Yeah.
The other big news story that came out of the Browns, as you alluded to, was Duke Johnson comments from Dorsey. Dorsey gave his, as every team does. Dorsey isn't unique. He's giving his annual presser before the draft. For us who forget, the draft is Thursday. So that is coming up too.
I forgot it was that soon.
It's coming up. So Duke Johnson was the real big storyline here. I'll quote Dorsey here. I continually keep telling you all that Duke is a very talented football player. We see a lot of stuff for Duke moving forward into the future with regards to him. He is a member of this organization moving forward. And again, he doubled down. Freddie Kitchens and coaching staff, they see him as a vital not a part, a vital part of this offense moving forward. I mean, those are very strong comments. Those are the kind of comments where he's even alluding to, like, hey, we may just be keeping him not just this year, but beyond.
I'll tell you what, that's encouraging. That could also be a way of trying to get him to play as well as he can before they dish him halfway through the year.
All that and more, Jared, all that and more. But
we're talking about John Dorsey here. We're not,
Yeah, he's definitely a cowboy when it comes to that stuff in a good way. And I think he could definitely pull the trigger if the deal's right. But I think he's staying.
Yeah. He's not one to really lie about things either.
No.
What I will say is that his other comments in regard to the draft is he makes the comment about trying to make he'd like all 8 of our draft selections to be starters, right? Even just using the number 8 and having 8 draft picks, I think is a distraction to the fact that he may be trying to move up in the draft too.
We'll see. I'm indifferent if he moves up or down. Because here's one thing I learned about Dorsey last year. Callaway being a great example, was Callaway's taken in the 3rd round. He finds players that Avery. We forget Avery had a really good year for the Browns.
Yeah.
Played nicely, did some nice things out there. So his draft picks really get a lot of mileage out of it. There is talk about moving up into the 1st round or maybe going back in the 2nd round. All that stuff to be said, Jared. I'm not going to pay attention as much anymore about who they select and why they selected them. Meaning, like, I'm not really looking so much for, like, the Browns need. In the past, I'd always be like, boy, the Browns really need X. Or hope they get player Y. More it's like, you know what? Let Dorsey do his thing.
I'll take another decent cover DB, or 2, something like that. Another option at tight end. I don't care.
Tight end. T-E. Tight end would be great. And I'm with you on the secondary. In fact, I think they're going to fill that out. I'll be honest with you.
I just don't care. Like, I'm shaking my head because I'm in disbelief that I don't.
I know.
Thursday. Andy, you said the draft's Thursday, right?
Thursday.
This shit is usually on my calendar as I'm going out, I'm eating wings, I'm going to have some beers, and I'm finally going to cheer for the Browns to get the quarterback that they've always needed. That's how this night always was for me.
If you and I did this podcast last year, we'd be doing a very stressful mock draft. Picking who is going to be coming out of the top 5. This year is not so much. It's going to be nice to put our feet up and kind of watch the draft come to us.
Yeah.
The other 2 things I took out of this press conference was Austin Corbett. He did make a mention of him, basically saying, I think he is going to make tremendous strides at right guard in 2019. Nothing is given in this thing, but he is going to sit and compete. And what he means by that is he's expecting him to start, but he does not have the starting job. He has to earn that right.
You're on notice, Austin.
Yeah, he really is. So it's a big year for Austin Corbett, which we all knew. And then the other thing is the hype machine. And I am glad this keeps getting stomped out the same way. It never gets misconstrued. Everybody says the same thing. Like, you know what hype means? Absolutely nothing. You got to win games starting in September. And that's great to hear. That's great to hear. That's what they need to be saying.
Yeah, they have no reason to care about anything else. None.
They really don't. We'll redo the draft and take a look back once everything recoils. Once everything lands next week. I know Jared's gonna be out of town, so it'll probably be in middle of next week sometime. But to Jared's point, and we'll do this before we toss the Cavs. It is an interesting time for Browns fandom because usually this is our Super Bowl week. This is usually our week where we get very excited, and I do too. I did too for many years. I mean, it'd be our only time we'd be up on the stage making the first picks and all that.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you. Not only is it nice, it is relieving.
Absolutely
not to have
relieving.
This draft be a part of our fandom life. It is really, really enjoyable to watch a draft from a different perspective.
And to also reference back to this hype machine issue, we have to really look at how this team was constructed, the players that are the players and the playmakers that are on this team are just that. They are on that team because of the hard work that they have put in on and off the field that is demanded of them by this regime on and off the field.
Yes.
So where's the hype? The hype is that you have a bunch of hardworking, really good football players with an opportunity to make something special happen in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And that makes this isn't a bunch of flash out of nowhere. This isn't something that caught fire just because, oh, wow, apparently it just worked out. No, these are guys that have worked their asses off for years to be the best at their craft that they could possibly be. And now you have them all in one room, all on one field, ready to go chase that Lombardi trophy, period. So there's your hype. There's your hype. These aren't guys that got good. It's not all just talent. Odell Beckham Jr. might be a blessed, talented individual, and Jarvis Landry. But you know what? Those two were practicing one-handed catches at 2 a.m. when they were kids. Like this is stuff that comes from putting in the work.
And same with Freddie Kitchens. And same with Freddie Kitchens, too. He's put in a lot of time and work into his career. I think sometimes people have been too flippant about him, and it's easy to do that because he's never coached a game as a head coach. But I think people are being a little too harsh. That guy came up through not just any college. He went to Alabama. It didn't just play punter at Alabama. He was a starting quarterback at Alabama. Yep. So, I mean, he has gone through a lot of different situations, and I think that needs to be reminded. Speaking of coaches, did you hear who might coach the Cavs? The latest rumor, and I knew this would happen. I've been alluding to it. Who is the star name? Jared, there's always a star name attached to the next head coach for the Cavs.
Krzyzewski.
It's a Krzyzewski. 1 year it's Izzo. Maybe Calipari. This year it is
Bad
Rick.
Motta's making a comeback.
Oh, boy. That would be a shock. This time it is slick Rick Pitino being bantered about by Peter Vesey. And Peter Vesey's a long-time NBA journalist and reporter, so this isn't some guy ripping off the hip here from Twitter. I mean, he's been around for a long time. Now, he says Dan Gilbert and Pitino have spoken about the Cavaliers coaching vacancy. According to an ESPN. According to Cleveland.com, their source told them that from the Cavs, we are respectfully not interested in him at all. No conversations by Dan, so they're refuting what Vesey says. Look, so you got two different lines there, and you can choose whichever one. I've learned with these kind of things, I wouldn't believe it's hard to know what's truth and what's not.
Right.
Here is something, though, I will say about this. I'm not surprised this came about because it always does with the Cavs searching hire. And by the way, we've never gone with these people. Izzo didn't coach a team. Calipari didn't coach a team. Coach K didn't coach a team. None of these guys end up being the coach. So for people who automatically think, oh, Pitino's the next guy, I pump the brakes. What we've learned is we always seem to go with the coach who's really an unknown, whether even Blatt, who had a history of coaching overseas, we didn't know who David Blatt was. Mike Brown, we didn't know who Mike Brown was. We certainly didn't know who Ty Lue was. So, I mean, we usually go with coaches who don't have much of a name. So don't get too wrapped up in it. Now, to play hypothetical. Rick Pitino coaching the Cavs, I will say, will bring a certain amount of pizzazz to this job. Now, in my gut, do I think Rick Pitino's coaching the Cavs? I don't. Do I think Rick Pitino's putting in calls to Dan Gilbert? Yes. Do I think Rick Pitino's trying to come back to coaching in the NBA? Yes, because he would be a good pro coach. He can't go back to college. He has coached in the pros before. He had one good stint with the Knicks, and then the second stint, which I want to get to, was the Celtics. And that's where I pause. The Knicks really worked out for him, and then he turned that and flipped it into the Kentucky job. The Boston Celtics job did not work out for Rick. And that is the kind of gig he's coming into here with Cleveland, where it's not a team that's established, it's a team that's up and coming. So maybe that they figure because he has college experience, he can coach these players up. I don't know. I think Pitino, though, would be a weird fit. Doesn't mean it won't work, but I think it'd be a weird fit for them.
Man.
It's interesting, though.
Andy, Rick Pitino, man. Rick Pitino, Mr. Scandal.
Slick Rick.
Mr. Scandal. Is this really a dude you want to have?
He, except for the Celtics job, has been a winner everywhere he goes. He has coached some of the biggest jobs in the country. He didn't just coach Sacramento Kings. He coached the Knicks and the Celtics. So he's got good pedigree. And he didn't just, and again, we all know his resume, but he did coach at not just Kentucky, but at Louisville. So he's coached at two high-profile programs. In the pros, some of the issues he's running into will not be the issues he'll be running into in the pros. So he doesn't have to worry about guys going out, guys getting money transferred. And that's the thing that really kept Pitino up at night. So that kind of stuff does kind of go away. Now, Pitino is still being investigated. I don't know where that's gone or where that's left off. But Rick still has some sort of trial coming up, I would suppose, about what's going to go on with him. But all that to be said, again, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just think it's a weird fit. I don't know if it'll work. It would be an interesting chance. The one thing that I would give it is it's going to bring a lot of buzz to the Cavs again. If Rick Pitino gets hired by the Cavs, it's going to bring a lot of buzz on the offseason.
I don't
think it's going to happen, by the way. I don't see this working out.
I don't think it's a good move. I don't think I like the guy. I mean, that's just me. Yeah, I'm talking. I mean, it's on a personal level. That's fine. But is this really the guy they want? Really? This is the type of dude you want? I don't know, man.
He has his past. It is not clean. I will say, though, when that guy's on the sideline and he coaches, he works hard. And he is out there to win. We'll have to see. With all that said, nothing more should be assumed or whatever, because there's a report disputing that it is happening, and there's another one that says they're not even talking. So who knows? The Cavs have been known to talk to Dallas assistant Jamal Mosley, and then Heat assistant, one of the Fab Five, Juwan Howard. I bet you there'll be other names coming up as the playoffs start continuing on. We'll just have to keep our ear to it. I think it's more than that. Here's the thing about Pitino, you'll know pretty quickly. If Pitino is still in the running, Pitino will be spreading these things out because he's got good connections. He definitely has the ear of the media. And if Rick thinks he's got something, he will make it known. It will not be. What should I say? It will not be quiet. Pitino will be loud about it. He'll let the press know. He'll leak it out.
Andy, this is a dude who's got like scandals involving strippers and stuff. This is a dude which I guess you can own football teams with that too.
He has a legendary story.
This is just
legendary story in Louisville where he was in an Italian restaurant with a woman and he was married at the time. It was not his wife, who he told the owner, "We need to close down the restaurant." And he then went on to have sex with the woman in the restaurant. I mean, that is pretty bad. I mean, that is something you'd see out of the movies. Like, you know what? Maestro, we're going to close down this place. I got some things to do. Man, that's pretty bold. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bold, pretty bad. But again, all that aside, I'm just looking again. He does have a lot of civil suits out there, which could be big jail time.
Yes.
All that said,
what are we talking about?
All that to be said, and here's why I keep this flame alive from my end. When he coaches, he is an excellent coach, and he coaches hard,
right?
And he's really good in a big spot. Like, you will not be nervous about Rick Pitino peeing on his leg in a big spot. Okay. The only thing about this, though, he did not handle this gig well a few years ago with the Celtics. And it's the exact same role. This team is not established, and he's building him into a winner. And he really had a hard time with that in Boston. It did not go well at all. So to just think he can get off, coaching a team in Greece and come over to Cleveland to coach the Cavs, that's not being fair.
I got to tell you, too. You know how much he looks like Tony Grossi? Don't tell Tony you said that. Don't tell Tony I said that. Him and Tony look related. I'm just doing I'm doing my due diligence right now on Rick, and not that I needed reminded at this dude's past. It's just, Andy, it seems like too much to take on.
Well, we'll see. I'll leave it like this. We knew, or at least I knew, there had to be one big name. The big name has been revealed. It is Rick Pitino. We'll see. We'll see. There always is, Jared. There always is. But again, in fairness to this process, Calipari and Izzo especially were rumored years ago, and neither took the job. So just to think that Pitino being rumored means he's got the job is not being fair. It's not being fair. The Cavs never seem to take these guys. they just bring him in to almost drum up PR. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Real quickly here as we wrap up, we talked about in the last podcast leading up to it, the Augusta win with Tiger was big time TV. Wherever you stand on this, whether you're for or against or somewhere in the middle, what Tiger did as pure sports was, that's a Masters to remember. That will be shown on highlights from years to come. Again, there's a lot of people who sit on either aisle with Tiger because of what his past is. I will say what happened on 12 in Amen Corner and what followed up with, it was really the first time, everybody's been saying it, but it's true. When he hit that shot on 16, Jared, you just knew it was over. And it really brought back a part of my golf life that I grew up with back in the forefront 20 years later.
There was the moment that I knew that there was a real chance this was going to happen. And I got to tell you, it was a surprise because this is the first time that he's come from behind, and I think in a tournament, maybe in a major. But
he's never won a tournament from coming from behind.
Right, coming from behind. But you could sense it stepping up to that first tee box. All I thought was, you don't want to be paired with Tiger on that last day, and you're instead of playing your game of golf, you're playing to keep him off your heels. Like, Tiger is in your mind, he's in your head at that point, right? You just know what he has done to so many players in the past on that final day, on that final round. I don't know, man. I wasn't as surprised watching throughout the week. I wasn't as surprised that he won it, but looking at the adversity that he had faced in his life, and he's had his own scandals. Him and Rick have a few things kind of in common here.
Yes, they do. Very similar.
But it's nice to see Tiger swinging without back pain, or at least it's not visible. It's nice to see Tiger playing the game of golf that we were used to seeing him play. Now it's back in the conversation. I never thought it would be in this conversation, but now he's back in the conversation of winning one more major and catching Jack Nicklaus on.
The two things I'll say Masters. Too, and you're right about Nicklaus.
Three more majors, one more Masters, I think.
Correct.
Is the
correct.
Number.
Yeah, I think you're right about both. The other two things, Molinari, I thought Molinari, after he kept scrambling out after the first night, I'm like, gosh, he's just going to scramble his way into victory here. He finally scrambled too much, and it got him into the water, the creek shot on 12. I thought, I was like, oh man, this is no bueno. And then the other one,
too. He held in there on a few times that I thought he was going to flop.
I did, and boy, he just and once you hit that kind of shot in that kind of moment, Molinari the wheels kind of came off. Mm-hmm. The other thing that Tiger should be very thankful of is that Koepka didn't make those late putts, because I think Tiger on 18, he made it happen and he got to work out. But boy, if you only got a 1-stroke lead with that first and second shots, that would have been dicey. So Koepka kind of helped him out there as well.
He seemed oddly relaxed for his position of play. Down that back stretch.
Agreed. So good to see Tiger winning. Again, no matter how you feel either way in the aisle about him, I totally understand it. There's been a lot of debates about that. I won't get in here in this podcast, but it's just pure sports, and seeing someone come back, it is interesting to see. And it's again one of those tournaments that we talked about for a long time.
Yep.
Now to the NBA playoffs. I said I'd bring this up, so I got an article here to bring it up with. The NBA so far, I think, has been blah. There's been a couple moments. The Sixers and Nets don't like each other. We all know that now. But really outside of that, if you're really into Spurs Nuggets, it's probably been fascinating. Really outside that, though, it's been kind of blah, chalk walk kind of stuff so far. And so I pulled it up. The rating so far in the first round of the playoffs, they are down significantly compared to any other sport so far. They are down 26%.
I didn't know what the numbers were going to be. I forgot you were going to bring this up. I was going to say there's no way that these numbers are good. No way.
26% down. That is way down. Way down.
Now what we'll have to see is that a LeBron factor? If he can get into the playoffs next season, which, man, at this point, you don't know what's going to happen with that Lakers team.
Well,
but I don't even know if this is a LeBron factor or a lack of competition factor, and you know exactly what's going to happen.
lack of competition, I think, is a problem. And I'll say this too. This guy did a great job. Michael Mulvihill, Mulvihill. He came up with a great stats. I want to give him credit. The NCAA tournament is up 9%. College basketball this year was up 5%. NBA regular season down 5%. NBA playoffs down 26%. I mean, a long ways to go. And I will say, I'm not naive. You're turning my head to Bucks Celtics. I will watch a few of those games. And
we'll see if those numbers pop back up.
That's my point.
Once
that's
those
my
series
point.
come around. But
that's my point. But boy, is that way down, though. Oof, is that way down. All that to be said, though, even with the DeMarcus Cousins injury, does anybody not think Golden State's going to win it all? Man, they're going to win it all.
Hey, before I forget, too, Pelicans got themselves a good GM now, huh? David Griffin. Down there with them, came on and just spoke recently in regard to Anthony Davis and talking about being all in with him, and that they've worked with his management. He's worked with his management for years in the past, and hopefully they can get things figured out and work around that. It's like, boy, that's a night and day kind of sound coming out of that team in regard to trying to make amends and make Anthony want to stay there and maybe build around him. I mean, why can't they do that? Why couldn't they?
By the way, good for Griff and good for New Orleans.
Right.
Because Anthony's staying in New Orleans.
They need him.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing if Anthony Davis stays in New Orleans. So
I think so, too.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if the playoffs pick up with ratings. So far, though, not just down, way down. I should throw in there, too, because we don't talk about it, but it was a big story. Very cool to see what the Blue Jackets did to the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won 4 in a row. The Tampa Bay was not just the favorite; they were the heavy favorite to win it all, and they won an historical amount. It was either games or points. I don't follow hockey enough to know, but they were listed as one of those historical check kind of teams. And Jared, they just didn't get bounced to get swept in 4 games like that. Kudos to the Blue Jackets. They have great fans down there, and they play the winner of Boston, Toronto, and that would be fun. And, I wish the Blue Jackets luck. I will try to watch a couple games, but that was cool. Cool to see. A big reaction.
I have never in my life been able to watch hockey. I'll try. I just can't.
I know. I will try to get into it too. But I will say the Twitter reaction was wonderful. Wonderful in Columbus, as it should be. That's a huge accomplishment. Huge accomplishment what they did there in hockey. All right, so it's 10-0 now. Cleveland up. We wish. Atlanta up, bringing up stinging memories from 95. So the week kind of ends on a dud, but again, it was a good week. And of course, as I say that, there's a line out in the ending there. But the Indians, good week overall still. We kind of mentioned those problems. We'll keep our eye on it. I think Oscar Mercado coming up will be something to watch. And again, the health of Zimmer. I think Zimmer could do a lot to really help press that DH role. And, you just hope the pitching will keep them in games. Tonight's not a good example, but when they do, I do think their front end of the bullpen's in good shape. The back end and the depth, it's not good. It's not good.
Well, follow along on Twitter at CLE and Beyond, at CLE and Beyond, on Facebook, facebook.com/Cleveland and Beyond. Email Andy and Jared at gmail.com, the website andyandjared.com or clevelandandbeyond.net, and subscribe on iTunes. You can also listen through Stitcher, Google Play. I think you can call up the podcast on Alexa now too, through the Echo devices and Amazon devices. All that stuff available right there at your fingertips. Andy and Jared, Cleveland and Beyond. Go ahead, Andy.
We will do a show, as I know, Jared, you're traveling, so we will do a show either, what do you think, Monday night, Tuesday after the draft? Something like that?
We can probably do it Monday night. I've got a goal of getting home and getting to my class on Monday, so I might be on the road all morning and still going to school Monday night is going to be my goal. So I should be able to do something Monday, but might be Tuesday.
So Monday night, we'll talk about the Michael Brantley reunion, and again, such an odd thing, and we'll definitely lead the show off. Browns draft, but not grabbing headlines here locally. We'll be interested to see how the Browns do in the draft, but it's not as make or break, which is so nice. So nice to see.
I'm fired up for the season. I've already said it. I've picked the Browns to have only 3 losses this season and walk their way into the playoffs with a first week bye. That's where I'm at, and it's up to them to change my mind during the season if they don't perform
The only
as
thing
I expect.
The only thing I'll allude to is that Thursday night game at home against Pittsburgh's a big game. Not that it ever isn't a big game, but that is the game. The Browns, that is the only game that stuck out to me. It's like, man, I hope they really get that game. Because that's a quick week, quick turnaround, and they did not beat them last year. That is a big game for that team.
I don't care about last year. He gone. Last year's gone. Don't care. Not worried about it.
Jared's right. By the way, Jared's right. It is, man, it's going to be a fun team to watch. And again, rightly or wrongly, Kareem Hunt, too, joins the team after the Patriots game.
Yeah, this team might be good. Hey, let's hope the Indians can keep scraping and fighting and getting their wins. And as long as everyone stays healthy and pitching, and we didn't even mention this, son of a gun, we didn't even talk about it. Mr. Sunshine with that injury. What happened with Clevenger and his injury? No surgery is the latest update. So that's where we're at on that. But considering it's that back muscle, I think was the issue. This is that was tough to watch him leave the rotation. Really was.
It is, but you know what? Rodriguez did a great job in Kansas City. They lost. My last thought. That kid can pitch. He's good. He was traded for Yan Gomes. He's a good 6. And he's going to be pitching again this week because they had a doubleheader.
Yep.
He was good. He's good, Jared. That kid's good. He's talented.
Well,
I like this stuff. He was impressive against the Royals on Saturday night.
If you like good pitching, like I do, you're going to love watching Indians this year. That's how it's going to be, and that's what's keeping me in the games.
I will say it's going to be here or there, meaning you're going to either have games that are 2 minutes and 45, 2 hours and 45, and you'll be in and out, or you have games like tonight that are a blowout. But hey, you get to go to bed a little early because I don't think the Indians are going to come back. I have this bad function in my body. I have to watch every pitch, but for those of you who don't, you can go to bed. You can go to bed and rest easily.
No, I've suffered from that in the past. I'm not suffering tonight. Nope.
No. By the way, Slider getting a lot of camera time, so it's good. I guess you got one thing going for it, but
maybe some Andre Knott and Mustard will make an appearance.
Yes. I will say, one observation though, and I said this once, but I do mean it this time. Of all the teams I've seen, the Royals have a good young nucleus. If they ever get pitching, watch out. And the Braves, I know they're going up against the Phillies, and they have to go. And the Mets and Nats, those are all good teams. Boy, the Braves look like a good hitting team. My God, their lineup's good.
All right.
This team can rake. Man.
We are really good at making false endings on this podcast. We do it almost every episode, and we appreciate all of you for listening all the way through.
For those of you
when you think we're done, we find one more thing to talk about, and that's just, I don't know. It's the way it is. It's the way things are always going to be. It's how we do the show. And
for those of you who are working out and needed 2 more minutes, you're welcome.
There you go. We got you through the last 2 minutes of your HIIT training on your elliptical, whatever. He's Andy Billman. I'm Jared Watson. Andy and Jared, Cleveland and beyond. Talk again soon. Take care.